Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of I Never Knew Inc., but My Dog Did podcast by life coach Maureen. I am Maureen Scanlon, your host for today. I am an author, speaker, life coach, and everything that encompasses. And I am so excited to bring you our next guest today. So I was thinking about her. She came across my path, and I was like, yes, 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 I am so on board because I have a special place in my heart for the fact that I think women are finally in 2022 coming into their own and what we deserve and finally getting some equality. But I look at my next guest as a pioneer in this area. I think of here in Phoenix, our Phoenix Mercury team, the WNBA, have won numerous championships and nobody even knows about it. And it really hurts my heart. And we finally got our first officiant female in the NFL in 2020. So we're slowly getting there. But I think with guests like my next guest, she's really amping this up for us. So I want everyone to meet my guest, Shawnee Harle. I'm going to tell you all about her. She is fabulous. Her bio is amazing. So Shawnee is a mental toughness coach. And I love this. She says the mind gym is always open. Train your brain. She is a two-time Olympian as a former assistant coach for the Canada basketball and is one of the most highly certified coaches in Canada. She has 27 years of elite coaching and leadership experience, including the Olympic Games, World Championships, FIBA Americas, and World University Games. Athletes have a big load to carry, and Shawnee helps them make sense of what's going on in their head, cut through the noise, and unleash their inner tiger. Yes, I love that. She is a chartered professional coach with the Coaching Association of Canada and holds a master's degree in coaching studies. I could go on and on and on, but I'd rather you hear it from her. Welcome, my fabulous friend, Shawnee.
Whoop, whoop. Let's go.
That's just like your personality alone, like makes it like, oh, she's excited, so I have to be excited. So I literally, when I read that bio, I went, oh my gosh, here's our girl. Here's someone who really fought the odds because this wasn't an easy field. I can imagine going into as a female 27 years ago. So tell us, since this is I Never Knew, we'll start with your struggle story. Tell us how it all started for you.
Oh, my struggle story was I didn't get what I wanted. And I was a basketball player, and what I wanted to do was get to the Olympics as a basketball player. And that got cut short because after 3 years of playing college basketball, in Canada we call it university basketball, I got cut. And there you go, my dream was done.
Wow.
And everything that I had wanted to do. And when I look back on it, it was really an unrealistic dream. I'm 5'5". Come on, people.
Oh,
Like I should have picked a different sport, but you don't know that when you're young. So that was the way the struggle started and I'm sure this happens for many of us. We want something and then we end up not getting it.
yeah. Yeah. And so 5'5", well, because I'm 5'4", and I feel like I'm super short. But you know what, though? There are players that have made it that are shorter in the NBA. Who was the guy with the socks? I remember he was pretty short too. He was and I remember he was really good. But I think you're right. I think sometimes we put all our eggs in one basket and then we have that huge disappointment. How did you overcome that, and how did you shift to get into the coaching world, or was that a slow burn, an evolution that happened?
Sometimes you have to have people in your life that can see something in you that you don't see in yourself.
Yes.
That was again how it happened. So I got cut, and then the coach that cut me, she said, Shawnee, have you ever thought about getting into coaching? And I'm like, no, I'm an athlete. And long story short, I would never have thought of that in a million years. I didn't even know that was, an option. And so she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And she nudged me to move into that direction. And once I started moving in that direction, I'm like, oh, this is what I was meant to be doing. Not being an athlete at 5'5", trying to make the Olympics. And that's how I started. Then I went to school to be a coach. I took a master's degree to be a coach. I was an apprentice for many years. And then, wouldn't you know, at the end of the day, I did go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
But as an assistant coach, not as an athlete. And I think what's kind of cool is we need somebody in our life to see something we don't see in ourselves. And I also think that when we bring and we show up with our values, people see that, and it attracts the right people. And I really feel like that's what's happened. Like, I was just being me, doing my thing. Then I got cut. Then I was mad about getting cut. Then I got unmad. Then my coach got me saying, hey, you should go into coaching. Then I did. And I just kept showing up as often as I could with my values. And then I end up at the Olympics. I know it sounds simple, and it's not simple. But there are some things that happen along the way that you don't know. You don't know when people are watching, listening.
Yes, I really like that you say that. And it's funny that, we have sometimes this tunnel vision for this is what I want to do, this is where I want to be. And then we get off track, not realizing, even though that's where you're going to end up, you're going in different directions. You're a little bit off path this way and off path this way. And you got to meet those people that instill that belief in you, and having that person see something in you that you thought, oh no, my tunnel vision says I'm an athlete. Oh my goodness, it's that hindsight is 2020, having the gratitude for the experience, right? And the pain and the disappointment.
I think having had the pain and the disappointment, that has actually helped me become a better mental toughness coach, which was what I'm doing now. Because when I talk to athletes, I'm like, yeah, I was you. I know what it's like to sit on the bench. I know what it's like to get cut. I know what it's like to lose. I know what it's like, how difficult that is. So that, again, I just think about the path that I was on. I thought it took me to a dead end, the athlete path, and it didn't. I thought it was at the time. But looking back on it, I'm like, no, I had to go on that, quote, dead end path, because that's what has made me wiser in what I'm doing now.
Yeah, this is the theme of all these stories that everyone tells. And I think it's the same with my life coaching is I had all these life experiences and I'm like, oh, why did I have to go through that until I became a life coach? And I'm thinking, that's why I had to go through it, because there's not a client that can sit in front of me that I haven't been through what they've been through. And, it's better to sit in front of someone like you who says, I've been there. I know the heartbreak of it. I know the struggle of working every day at your craft and then being cut and not appreciated, and the low self-esteem. And so I just think it's so cool that no matter what happens in our lives, I think we all have these same sort of experiences. So what do you do with an athlete who's been training really, really hard and they do end up in that place? What do you tell them? How do you get them through that pain?
It's funny too how I'm thinking about what I'm getting ready to say next, and I'm like, and I didn't know any of this when I was an athlete. And when I got cut back in the day, I wish somebody had been able to offer some wisdom for me. So anyway, this is what I'm teaching the clients that I work with, I call it the concept of two truths. And the truth is, you're going to get what you want, or you're going to get what you don't want. And that's the truth. And sport, and I will venture to say life, but I know sport pretty well. Sport teaches us to avoid one of the uncomfortable truths. Sport says, you know what, just don't think about that. Just get out there and be confident. You got this. Fake it till you make it. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not helpful because we're avoiding one of the possibilities. Every time we show up in life, one of two truths is always we're either going to get what we want or we're going to get what we don't. We're going to win, we're going to lose. We're going to hire, get fired. We're going to get a raise, we're not going to get a raise. We're going to be approved of, we're going to be disapproved of. And what I think is kind of cool is when I help these athletes understand this concept of two truths, what it does is it helps us stop fearing the outcome.
Yeah.
Because when we're denying and avoiding one possible outcome, we're fearing it. Well, what if we didn't fear it? What if we accepted the truth? Because I believe that when we can face and accept the truth, it actually sets us free.
Yeah.
And so I help athletes when they're getting ready to try out. I'm like, here's the two truths. You're going to make the team or you're going to get cut. And try out anyway.
Yes.
You're going to shoot the ball. It's either going to go in or it's not going to go in. And shoot anyway. So what I take them through is when we can look at this concept of two truths and accept it. Accepting it doesn't mean we have to like it.
Yeah.
Right? Those are different. I think the next piece that comes into it is to say, I might get cut and I'm going to try out. I might miss the shot and I'm still going to take it. I think brings up one of the most important mental toughness concepts. It's the concept of courage.
Yes. Yes.
Right? It takes courage to jump into the arena knowing you might get what you don't want. Yeah. That takes courage.
Yep. To do it anyway. To do it anyway, as Brene Brown would say, the vulnerability of being in the arena. If you're not in the arena getting your ass kicked, your opinion matters none. And what I love that you just said is exactly what I tell my clients when you change the but to the and. So listeners, notice what she said. There are two truths. You are going to either make the team or not make the team, and you're going to try out anyway. When you add a but in there, but you're going to try out anyway, it negates and it puts this negative mindset in your brain that this is going to suck. Something's going to suck with the but. And I love that you used the and the acceptance of it, because isn't life like that? We never know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know the things that we're doing are going to get us what we want. And I love that you use that. Now, there's something that you mentioned and I want to know about. And she talks about the F words, and no, not the F words you guys are thinking about. But she talks about these F words, and I love these F words. Tell us about the F words.
I mean, I just love the concept of F words, right? Because it always seems like those are the things we're not supposed to talk about. Ooh, an F word. And I'm like, oh no, we're going to talk about them. That's the best thing we can do is talk about F words. The F words that I really love to talk about are fake, fear, feel, and face. Sport, that's what I know best, but I think this transfers to life. Yeah. Sport teaches us to fake it, to hide from our fear and avoid our feelings. I teach the exact opposite. We're going to face our fears. We're going to face our feelings. How in the world are we supposed to be emotionally intelligent and self-aware if we hide, avoid, and fake? Like it doesn't connect. But unfortunately, to have the courage to face the F words is what's hard, because those feelings are pretty damn powerful, and fear can often be more powerful than courage. But what if we said, okay, I feel fearful, nervous, anxious, full of self-doubt, no confidence, whatever. And then we come back to the and choose courage. Because what I know in sport is that high performers do not let their feelings drive their behavior. Because this is what happens to us a lot. We have a negative feeling that we don't like, and then we find an excuse to not do X. Yeah. So I'm like, well, let's face the F words. Because that's the truth, right? The truth is in there. And let's face it. And don't let the fear drive the behavior. Choose courage. I think courage is a choice, and decisions decide destiny.
Yeah. And I had heard one of my previous guests say fear is face everything and rise. You know, if you're going to have fear, let's face everything and rise. And I think, you know, going through, like you said, whether it's sports or business or life, you can suppress those things. You can push them down, but they're going to come out in some way. And I think your concept is fabulous because it's a lightening and an empowerment. If I have faced something and I now have courage, I've now empowered myself to say, oh, wow, I can do hard things, and I can do the next hard thing that comes in front of me.
And what if, again, I always am so conscious that words have such power over us. Or the definition that we give to words. So I think about the F word, fear. That's a really powerful word. And so I teach these athletes and their parents and coaches that I work with is, what if we had a different narrative about fear? What if fear was an opportunity? And I heard this quote, I don't know where I got it, but I use it a lot. Without fear, there can be no courage.
Yeah.
So we change it from fear as a bad thing to actually, fear could actually be an opportunity. How in the world do we practice being courageous unless we're fearful?
Right. Because anything in life, feeling wise, emotion wise, is you have one side or the other. You don't know happiness until you've had sadness. So I love that you just said that. That's exactly it. You know, you've got to have fear to feel courage. You have to, Brene Brown again, I listened to this video the other day. You cannot have vulnerability without shame, because it's just not the same thing. That's those words, but there's so much more behind those words. We use all these buzzwords now and motivational stuff, but you're right. There's so much of a deeper meaning. And for one thing, there's always the other side. I always look at it like when I was a kid, we were on teeter-totters. We called them, whatever you call them.
Teeter-totters, yes, teeter-totters. I know what that is.
You know, you got to balance them out. Sometimes you've got this, sometimes you've got this. And the idea is you and your friends would try to get in the middle and have both of your feet up off the ground. And so I think that is such a great concept that you mentioned. Now, I'm curious, because you do work with the students and you work with the children. How do you motivate children and students when they don't have quite the maturity yet to understand some of these concepts?
You know, it never crosses my mind that I'm trying to motivate them. That's never where my brain is thinking. My brain goes along the lines of, how can I help this athlete see that big bright light that I know is in them?
Yes.
They all have this huge light in there. And you know what? Sport does a pretty good job of trying to shove that light down and make that light dim. Mm. And I'm always thinking the opposite. How do I help that light shine instead of it being dim? And many athletes that come to me, they have a dim light. They've had disappointments. They got what they didn't want. They got cut. They're full of fear. Their coach yells at them. They feel pressure from their parents. All of those things make us have a dimmer light. And I believe we all want the opposite. So really, I'm just trying to give them what they already want. They know their light is dim, and I just help them have it shine brighter. The other thing that I believe so strongly, we underestimate young people, youth. Like you can't believe. The youngest client I work with is 7. They're so smart. Like everyone goes, oh, Shawnee, they're never going to understand all this. I'm like, oh yeah? In fact, a lot of the younger ones haven't built up the unhealthy narratives that we learn as we grow older. And they are so sharp and so smart. They understand very quickly. And I just help them shine their bright light. I help them look into the mirror and get an accurate self-reflection, because most of them do not know how to do that.
Wow. I was getting these thoughts as you were talking, and you're right. You know, the younger they are, the less bad habits they've developed, the less negative thoughts they've developed about themselves. They're way more open-minded. It reminds me when I was in the medical field and hiring someone straight out of a medical school versus someone who's been in the field for 20 years. You've got to undo this person of 20 years of this is how they've done it. This is how it's always been. And they're set in their ways. And you've got this fresh medical student who's coming in like, I'm ready to learn. So it's like they're sponges. And I think you're absolutely right. And it makes me sad when I hear that their light is dimmed. There's been controversy over sports for children. I was on a panel once, and I know one woman, it was a women's panel, one said they didn't think sports were good for children because it put too much pressure on them and it lowered their self-esteem. And then I had another woman who said I was in sports and it was the best thing for me because I had a lot of stuff going on at home and it was my outlet. What's your opinion either way?
That's such a good question. I think sports are great for athletes. I think sports are bad for parents. I don't think the athletes are the problem.
Tell us about that.
Well, where does pressure come from? Comes from the parents.
Yeah.
Where else does pressure come from? The coach. Yeah. Social media. I mean, when I'm doing the work that I'm doing, I really make an effort to help parents and coaches. I say to them, don't you think it's time to give sport back to its rightful owners? The athletes.
Yes.
And I tell the parents, can you just sit there and cheer one time on the car ride home? What about if you just shut the hell up?
How about you send the parents to me and you keep the athletes, and I'll get the parents to stop projecting on their children because I know where that...
Exactly. So that's what's happening.
Yeah.
And you know what is so interesting? How many athletes I work with, they tell me, I wish my parents didn't come and watch.
Oh, the pressure.
Right. So sport is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not the athletes that are the problem, and it's not sport that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's the pressure that comes from outside sources. And it's worse than it ever has been. Because for the athletes, there's nowhere to hide. You're more exposed than you've ever been. Somebody's videoing it, someone's Snapchatting it, Instagramming it. There's nowhere to hide. So I really understand this concept of pressure. But I think it's up to the leaders the parents and the coaches to handle them own selves. We have to first lead ourselves before we lead others. And I don't think parents and coaches do a very good job of that. If sport is hurting our athletes, whose fault is that?
Yeah, it's who's leading them. Absolutely. Well, and the thing is you look at just it's a human characteristic to project onto others and also feel validated by something that is a product of you, right? So your children or your team, your athletes are a reflection of you. And in a society where performance is at an all-time high as far as athletic ability goes, and they're comparing themselves consistently to each other, to others, there's these high expectations for perfectionism. And I deal a lot with clients with the perfectionism mentality. And where did that come from? Home. That came from growing up in a family where you were expected to do things perfectly. My own mother said I wanted perfect children. It's impossible to have perfect children, but then I put that on myself. So every bad decision I made, I beat myself up. So that brings me to another really good question is failure. How do we teach failure? Because I personally don't think participation trophies are a great idea. I do not get an award for going to work every day. So what do you think about that?
Well, you brought up another F word, didn't you? Fail.
There you go.
Well, it relates to what I had said a little bit earlier. There are two truths. We'll succeed or we'll fail. That is the truth. If you don't want to fail, go and do things you're already good at. Don't ever try anything new. Never put yourself out there. And just play it safe all the time. That's a choice. People can choose that if they want to, because what that tells me is we're avoiding one of the uncomfortable truths. What happens when we get what we don't want? This topic comes up so frequently when I'm coaching athletes, this failure. And I'm like, well, what's your definition of failure?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, someone taught you that. Because I believe that fear of failure is learned. So think about, we give a 5-year-old a coloring book and crayons. They smush it all around. They hold it up. Somebody goes, that's the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. Boom, it goes on the fridge. Somewhere along the road, that same youth gets a coloring book and crayons, smushes the colors all around, holds it up, and someone goes, why did you color outside the lines? Go redo that.
Yes.
So this is learned. So we learn to avoid it, because when we fail, what's the result? We get disapproved of.
Yeah.
We get disapproved of. And so when we're avoiding failure, what are we actually avoiding? Disapproval.
Yes.
From others, but also disapproval from ourselves, right? There's a double whammy that goes on. So back to your question, how do I help people deal with it? Well, we have to spend time on the two truths, because then we don't fear the outcome. We dive into the process. And then this is it. Oh, I forgot about this F word. Oh, I'm so glad I remembered. Then I do this. I ask them if they think failure is normal. And they go, no, they don't think it's normal. And I'm like, why not? And they're because every time I fail, I get in trouble. You see the connections? Yes. And so I say to them, so say I have a hockey player. I said, I ask, who's your favorite NHL player? And they tell me. And I said, have you ever seen that NHL player fail? Like, yep. I'm like, well, how many millions of dollars are they making? They tell me. And I said, how much money are you making? They're like, zero. No. Do you not think it is okay for you to fail? So I help normalize it, because I know that if we're not failing, we're hiding. We're playing it safe. And to stand tall and proud on the podium of life, we have to be willing to fail and get unsafe. So ready for my other F word?
Yes.
The F word is forgive.
Oh.
So this is the opposite. So this is the biggest thing that I use with perfectionists. And most athletes are perfectionists because every time they fail, they get disapproved of.
Yeah.
So they're always seeking perfection. And I'm like, okay, did you fail? Did you mess up on, do you think failure is in your control? They're like, yep. I said, do you think you could stop making mistakes? Is that in your control? Yep. And I said, okay, how about this? Did you fail on purpose? They're like, no. Did you make mistakes on purpose? No. But you just told me they were in your control.
Oh, I like that.
So I help them see it's out of their control. And then I say to them, don't you think it's crazy that you're judging yourself on something that you don't have any control over? It's so crazy. Because we cannot control the outcome. Yes. I said, well, therefore, if you didn't fail on purpose, you didn't mess up on purpose, you didn't lose on purpose, don't you think it would be okay to forgive yourself for being imperfect?
And I love that. And it isn't even a fail. You know, if we could just let people see, it's not a fail. It's that someone else may just be at a different place than you are. Maybe they started a year earlier than you have. You know, you look at anything in your life, there's a million life coaches out there. There's a million speakers out there. And I don't go out into the world thinking, oh, I'm not going to be as good as them. If someone's been doing it for 20 years, I'm going to have more experience than someone who just started last month, and someone doing it 20 years is going to have more experience than me. I think we have to stop. I tell my clients, put your blinders and your earmuffs on. You know, like stop looking and hearing what everyone else is doing and run your own race. And you said the best thing, and I want to reiterate this for the listeners. She said, if you do not want to fail, then keep doing something you're good at. And I love that line so much. I love that concept because you're always, in order to get good at something, you have to fail at it. There's no way to just, you don't start off perfect at something. And there are, yes, definitely people who have an innate talent for something, but they still have to practice. So I love that you say that. That's where all of our self-doubt and our self-esteem and my concept are the 3 C's, you know, the self-confidence, self-esteem, 3 S's, self-esteem, self-confidence, and self-image. And what I find with my clients is one of them is off kilter or 2 of them are off kilter. If you don't have the 3 of those in line, you can't succeed because you cannot outperform your self-image, self-confidence, and self-esteem. You just can't. It has to be lined up in self-confidence. What do I believe in myself? Self-esteem. What do I bring to the world? How does the world view me? Self-image. How do I present myself to the world? What is the image that I want to portray? Kindness, compassion, anger, out of control. Like, what is your self-image that you're portraying? So I think those three things must be in alignment for us to be the best that we can be. What do you think of that?
I completely agree with you. And I think that we are not very good at allowing ourselves to be imperfect. Especially this day and age, right? Again, there's nowhere to hide. Like back in the day when there was no cell phones, you could just go around your own little world and nobody really knew what you were doing. But now everybody knows everything. And I really think that the striving to keep up with the Joneses. So whether that's athletes trying to keep up with other athletes or parents with other parents, I believe that comparison is the thief of joy. Yeah. And it should be me against me. It should be me saying, what does my best self, what does my greatest self look like, sound like, feel like? What was it last year? What is it this year? What was it last month? What will it be in 3 months? And it's us against us. And if we are looking at someone else, there is such a thing as healthy comparison. It's like, oh, they do these things? Holy crap, that is so good to know. I'm going to go get my butt in gear and I'm going to get better at those things, as opposed to they do things and, oh, that just must mean that I suck.
Yes. And I'm so happy that you said that, because there is healthy comparison. I have this thing that I do called the cloak exercise with my clients. And I say, I want you to choose someone you admire, or 3 to 5 people that you admire. Tell me what the characteristics are that you admire about them. And they'll tell me, and it could be living, dead, celebrities, family, friends, whatever. Give me 5 characteristics that you really like. And I tell them, when they wake up in the morning, you sew those characteristics into a cloak and you put that on. And then you go out into the world and you be that. And so that healthy comparison that you're talking about, I 100% agree with. Find the things you admire and emulate that, instead of seeing what somebody else is doing and degrading yourself for not being that. Right? Because you can be, do, and have anything you want. You just have to create it and believe it.
I would add that we're very good at being self-critical, and we're not very good at putting that cloak on. And, when I listen to athletes talk, I just cannot believe how much negative comes out of their mouth. But I'm like, well, where are they learning that? They're hearing it, right? They're hearing it out there, and then they're believing it.
Yeah.
Nobody ever goes, so this, you know what, I'll ask an athlete, I'll be like, give me some things you're good at. And they can't even come up with, but boy, oh boy, the list of all of the others, they can list that to the nth degree. And I'm like, that's fine, let's go ahead, that's right, we have the truth. Here's the things I'm good at, here's the things I'm not good at. They're not very good at how many things they are good at. I would also say, if there are parents listening to this that have kids, I hear this a lot. I hear parents say a lot, I'm so proud of you. I never say that to a client ever. I say, I hope you're proud of yourself.
Yes.
There's a huge difference. Because if we don't know how to self-validate, we spend all of our time looking for outside validation, and it makes us insecure and fearful because we're worried about not getting it. I want to push it back onto them. I want them to own, hell yeah, I'm proud of me. So I always coach my parents, stop using that phrase, because we're doing it for the right reasons. It sounds loving and supportive, which it is. But we need to help athletes own their self-worth, own their successes, own their failures, own the whole shit show. It's part of the truths. And I think that concept of, I hope you're proud of yourself. I was working with a professional golfer. This golfer had been on the LPGA for a really long time. And I've been working with them for a while. They come, one of the times they have this great round. And I said, I was following the scorecard, checking in at the end of it. I said, wow. I said, I hope you're proud of yourself. The golfer texts me back and is like, Shawnee, I don't remember the last time that I truly felt proud of myself. I've never thought of being proud of myself, because you hear it what happens when you play well. Everyone tells you, oh, you're so good, you're so this, you're so that. But that's different. External validation is different than internal. And I think internal validation, that's the key to standing on the top of the podium of life.
I could not agree more. My signature talk is about learning to be your own best friend. And when you don't, you have that codependent mentality. And that's what I grew up with. And therefore, what did I do? I had to perform to receive love in my mind.
Yes.
In my mind, I need to do stuff to make you validate me. I need to do stuff so I can get love, because I never learned that concept that you just said, which was, I got to be proud of me. I have to love me. And you know what's really great about you, Shawnee, is that you are preparing them for the game of life, because when you are, and I have two really good examples, when you are a top performing athlete, let's take Michael Jordan, okay? Michael Jordan at the top of his game, so awesome, decides to go into baseball. What happens when Michael Jordan goes into baseball? Well, suddenly the best basketball player ever is a flop. Even though he's a great athlete, it doesn't mean you're great at everything. And he had to take all of that criticism. So you're setting them up to say people are going to criticize when you're not at the top of your game. Outside influences are fickle. And if you say, yeah, but I tried something different, like you said, you know what? You're only going to fail if you try something that you're not good at, because you had the courage to try. Let's go to Tom Brady. So we know with the Patriots, he's fabulous, absolutely fabulous. He decides to make this break. We don't know. There's probably some politics involved. He goes over here to the Buccaneers, and he's not doing well. And I'm listening to the game the other day, and I'm hearing these broadcasters just dogging him. And I'm thinking, a year ago, 2 years ago, man, he's the GOAT. Okay, he is the greatest of all time. No one has more Super Bowl rings than Tom Brady. So this, in athletics, you can speak to this. In athletics, it's a fickle world. Everyone loves you when you're at the top. But when you're struggling, or you're coming down from that, because there's always going to be someone that's going to outperform you. There's someone that's going to become better than you. You have a window where you're really, really good. And then you get older, your body changes. And now you have to accept this media is always going to criticize you. You have one bad game, they got something to say. I think you're preparing them so well for the athletic world, pro athletic world, college athletic world, but you're also preparing them for life. That if you don't validate yourself, no matter what it looks like around you, then you're always going to feel less than.
I totally agree with you. And I think that sport does a very good job of selling us, and so does life, that I think of it like a transaction. I give you my credit card, and in return I get this. So I think about what you said when you were little. If I'm smart, the transaction is I get love. So we get this mentality of a transaction. And sports says if you work really hard, you'll make the team. I'm like, no, you won't. Maybe not. I don't know if you will or you won't. But we expect these transactions to be carried out all the time. So you think about coaches, right? I'm giving you my wisdom, and the transaction is now we need to win. And if we don't win, I'm going to yell at you. There's these transactions taking place all of the time. And they're the external validations. What if we weren't looking for transactions? What if we were looking for transformation?
Yes.
How do you measure? Is there a transaction for courage? Is there a transaction for taking a risk, trying something new? You can see how it doesn't fit the transaction model, but it sure as heck fits the transformation model. We don't have very many things in life or sport that measures transformation. Everything measures transactions. And that's why it's easy to give up when we're not getting the transaction that we want. And yet in my mind, I'm like, well, we're measuring the wrong damn thing.
Oh my goodness, do I agree with you so much. Anyone in the coaching world knows what SMART goals are. And one of the in the acronym SMART, M is measurable. And I agree with you. You cannot measure in life coaching or coaching. You cannot measure the change that is being made. And I have so many clients that say, "Oh, Maureen, I keep doing this. I keep doing this." And I go, "Yeah, so you were doing it for 35 years before you came here. Did you think it was going to change in 6 months? No, there's no time limit. Take your time. Do whatever you have to do. But are you better than you were yesterday?" And I think that's where mindfulness needs to be taught in the schools, in athletics. I think enjoying the moment and saying, in this present moment, am I having a good time? Am I passionate about what I'm doing? Because whether it's sports or our careers, when we have people in things that they do not enjoy, and parents tend to push kids, you need to stay in this. I told my children growing up, you start something, you give it a year. If you don't want to do it anymore, then we can go ahead and move on. But you have to be committed. I have to teach you how to fulfill obligations because it takes mom's time and mom's money. So you got to give it a year. And then if you don't want to do it and you're not passionate about it, absolutely. Because I don't want my kids to ever feel like I did. You and I are of the same generation where you stay in a job for 40 years that you hate, and the reward at the end is 40 years, and then you get a pension or you get a Social Security check, and then you have no health and you can't go do what you wanted to do anyway. So I think you're so on to something so great here for our listeners hearing this is we tend to be geared toward a reward system. And that, like you said, transactional is if I do this, then I get this. Instead of just saying, I'm doing something I love. And when I quit like my corporate job and started coaching and started speaking, and this podcast is life, I don't get a dime to do the podcast, but it's the most fulfilling thing I do in my life. I look forward to it every day. This conversation, what's transactional is I just grew because I met you. And I think if we give them this broader view of what you're getting from being an athlete is priceless. There's no transactional amount that we could even measure because you learn something. What you give them, coaches, let's talk to the coaches here. What you give them is priceless. You mold the minds of the future. And how many times do you reflect on, I remember a teacher from my youth that said this. I remember a coach told me this. You just told me your coach, when you didn't make the team, she changed the direction of your entire life. And I don't think this plaque is any more appropriate for anyone except you today.
Love it.
Isn't that ironic and I have it here through every single podcast, and it's for you. This was for you. Like I was waiting for you. And guys, if you can't see the video, it says a good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. And so whether it's an athletic coach or a life coach, I think really what we're needing to be focused on is how are we changing their lives. Forget the game, forget the athletics, forget the bodies, and no disrespect because that's your life, but I'm saying ultimately what they take forward from you and the difference and the purpose that you're doing is who do they become. And I just think it's super, super cool. So as we wrap up, my fabulous Shawnee, I ask every guest, if you've heard any of my podcasts, you're marching down your city. What city do you live in?
I live in Vernon, British Columbia, Canada.
Awesome. You're going in Vernon, British Columbia, and you're going downtown and you got 100,000 people behind you. You're holding a banner. And this banner says what you want for changing the world. What does it say?
Courage.
Just courage. Tell us what that means to you.
We don't fear change. We fear being changed.
Ho, ho, ho.
And I think it takes courage to look in the mirror and be truthful about the changes that are needed, not just outside of us, but inside of us.
Ah, I love that. We don't fear change, we fear being changed. Sounds like getting out of our comfort zones to me. That's really what takes courage and bravery and vulnerability, is doing that thing we've never done and not knowing what the outcome is going to be. Back to your two concepts of I'm either going to get what I want or what I don't want. And I really want to control it and I have no control. And that's where anxiety and depression and all that fun stuff psychologically come from. And the beauty of it is we're all on the same page. We're all human and we all feel it. And at every point in our life, every stage in our life, we're all dealing with something that's out of the norm for us. We change as humans every 7 years. Like our cells in our bodies literally make a complete transformation and change every 7 years. So of course our minds have to change. Our spirit has to change. Our souls have to grow and, expand. So to end it on a fun note, what is your shameless self-indulgence? Mine is M&Ms.
Oh, you know what I could just eat all day long?
What?
Haagen-Dazs peanut butter and chocolate ice cream.
Man, I wish I would have bought stock in ice cream because I cannot tell you, it's like 99% of my guests say ice cream. Peanut butter. It's like sounds like a Reese's peanut butter cup in an ice cream form.
Oh, you should see the chunks of peanut butter in it. Oh my gosh, it's so yummy. So that is one of my indulgences.
I could completely see it. Listeners, if you don't see this video on YouTube, I could see the look on her face. Like she was picturing herself literally eating a bite of this ice cream. Like I saw the joy on her face. Mm-hmm. So we have another ice cream lover, and I think Blue Bunny has a brand that actually has little mini Reese's cups in it. And it's pretty fantabulous. So this has been so much fun. Shawnee, I hope you had a really, really good time because you are just a wealth of knowledge. I just felt you today. I connect with you and I feel like you're a kindred spirit. We're all saying the same thing. That's my banner. We're all saying the same thing, whether it's related to sports or it's related to businesses or personal development or education. I think we just all want the best for each other and for ourselves.
Well, it was Maya Angelou that said, when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
And, when we all get to help each other know better, the collective knowingness, I think there's power in that.
My dream is to create another Atlantis. That's all I'm saying. I think we can have a perfect world. And I don't mean that it has to be perfection, but perfect for us, where we all love and we all just have kindness and compassion for one another and ourselves. So thank you so much, my dear. It was so great knowing you, and I can't wait to stay in contact with you. I actually have another guest and a actual life coaching client who is just starting a sports mindset coaching business, and I think you and him would be just so great to line up. So I'm gonna be the connector, the conduit. So yeah, we'll definitely get you guys set up. So guys, if you want to get a hold of our lovely Shawnee, where can they reach out to you if they want help with some of their athletic coaching?
The best place to find me is on my website, ShawneeHarle.com. You can find me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Perfect. Guys, and I'll have all of those links when we publish her episode. I'll have all the links so you guys can just click on it and find her and reach out to her to get some wonderful coaching. As you can see, there's far more than just the performance part. There's the mental part of it, and I appreciate that because I'm all about the mental health awareness. If you all are looking for life coaching, you can find me at lifecoachmaureen.com. And of course, if we can't skip over the puppies, my books. My dog is more enlightened than I am, and my dog is my relationship coach. They're both available at Amazon. And mydogiseverything.net boutique, where we have nothing but healthy treats and fun apparel, matching dog mom, dog dad apparel, and lots of bandanas and safety products. So please donate to your ASPCA, near and dear to my heart. Let's save some of those puppies and provide help. So everyone have a wonderful day, and I thank you all for listening. Leave the 5-star review and go leave any comments. If you need to get a hold of Shawnee, you can always reach out to me and I will contact her. So everyone have a fabulous day. Until next time on I Never Knew podcast, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.